In 2020, polling was off by around 4 points, giving Joe Biden a 8.4% lead on the national-wide level. While if you look at the actual results, Joe Biden only won by about 4.5 percentage points. Now, if you look at the polling right now, Donald Trump is doing phenomenally against Joe Biden, as he currently leads in polling in most of the popular vote polls, not to mention he is doing very well in the statewide as well. So in today's video, we'll be taking a look at what happens if the polls were as wrong as they were in 2020. Now here is the map with the current states. You can see that some of them already filled in, some of them just don't have polls, and the others are very safe. I'm just going to be giving Nebraska 2nd and Maine 2nd District to their respective parties just because of the fact that there aren't any polls in either of those districts. Now let's go to the actual results here. So if you look at the first state here is the state of Arizona. I'm going to be going in alphabetical order. You can see that Trump is leading right now by about 5% in some of these polls, about 5 to 6%. Now, if you consider the polling inaccuracies, that would suggest that Trump will win this state by 10 percentage points, which is pretty significant. Now, going to the next state, going to be the state of Colorado. So for the state of Colorado, Joe Biden is leading in some of the polling, by around 7 to 8%. But if you apply the polling inaccuracy here, now Colorado's polls generally are pretty accurate. But if you look at the Colorado margin right now compared to the national results of 2020, we're going to be giving Colorado as the lead state to Joe Biden. Now going to the next state is the state of Florida. The state of Florida here, there is one outlier poll suggesting that Joe Biden is actually defeating Nikki Haley here by 5%. I don't really buy that. Now, if you look at the general consensus is that Trump is up by about 7 to 8 points against Biden, which means that in a hypothetical election, he would win this hypothetical prediction by about 12 to 13 points. Now, going to the state of Georgia. If you go to the state of Georgia, you see that Joe Biden is leading in 2 of the polls by a little bit, but neither of them actually involve Donald Trump. If you look at the Trump polls here, you see that Trump is up by about 7 to 8 percentage points, which in retrospect would give Trump about an 11 to 12 point lead in the state of Georgia. Now going to the state of Iowa. Iowa here you can see that Trump is leading by about 10% in the polls average, which means that in this adjusted by polling error, he would be actually winning by 14 points, very close to safe margin. Now going to the state of Maine, you can see that in the state of Maine there isn't really many polls, but you see that the polls are very different. I don't give much credit to this poll. There's no way Joe Biden's at 28% right now. I would say the polling average is about Biden plus, it's really hard, but it's probably like Biden plus 7 or 8. So it would be probably closer to a likely to lead margin here. Now going to the next state, going to the state of Michigan, you see that Joe Biden here is not doing very well against Donald Trump. He's leading in one outlier poll. The others suggest that he's down by about 5%. Adjusted by the error, that means he's going to lose the state by closer to 9 percentage points. Now going to the state of Nevada here, you see that in the state of Nevada here, Trump has led in every single poll against Joe Biden. And that is pretty concerning considering the polling error, and in this case, he would be winning this by about 7 to 8 percentage points. Going to the next state, the state of New Hampshire here. Now you see in New Hampshire, there is actually a lot of polls because this is the first in the nation's primaries, and therefore there's a lot of polling. You see that, generally speaking, Joe Biden is ahead of Donald Trump by about 7 to 8 percentage points. Even when you adjust it for the polling error, you still see that Joe Biden is leading by around 3-4%, which is sufficient for a lead margin. Now going to the state of New Mexico. You see that in the state of New Mexico, Joe Biden is leading in all the polls, though by varying margins. Overall speaking, in this prediction, he would be probably winning this by a lead margin. Again, not the best sign for Joe Biden. Now going to the next state, the state of North Carolina. In the state of North Carolina, Trump has been leading in every single poll, and he's been leading again by varying margins between 4% and 13%. Now, generally, that would give you about an average about 7 to 8%, which in this polling would suggest he would win the state by close to 12 points. Now, going to the next state here, the state of Ohio. Now, in the state of Ohio, you can see that Donald Trump has been leading by pretty substantial margins. You see that 3 polls suggest that Biden is ahead of 3 different Republican candidates, but that those are kind of outlier polls and they don't involve Donald Trump. In this prediction, though, Trump will be pretty much leading by a likely margin closer to double digits. Going to the next state, the state of Pennsylvania. Now, going to the state of Pennsylvania here, you see varying different polling. You see that Joe Biden's actually up in most of the polls, but when you adjust it for polling error, it suggests that Trump is actually ahead by 2%. Now, the only recent polls that suggest Trump is winning are 2 morning consult polls, and they're outliers compared to some of the others. Nonetheless, we would still be giving the state over to Donald Trump. Now going to the next state here, which would be the state, I actually missed the state of Minnesota, my apologies. So for the state of Minnesota, you see that Joe Biden is leading in the polls, and when you adjust it with polling error, it becomes very close. It becomes essentially a tie, but since only 1 poll here, you see suggests that Trump is actually leading Biden. Biden is actually leading Trump by more than 5%. I'm gonna go ahead and give this state to Donald Trump by a tilt margin. It's gonna be very close. Now going to the next state here on the list, we're going to go down to the state of Texas. For the state of Texas, you can see that actually Biden is leading in a couple of polls, but none of them actually involve Donald Trump. Trump is leading according to every single poll, and we see that Trump is generally leading by about 7 to 8 percentage points, which would in this scenario be about a 11 to 12% lead over Joe Biden. Now going to the next state, the state of Virginia. The state of Virginia here, you see that actually Haley is leading Joe Biden in one of the polls, but that again does not involve Trump. Trump is leading the state by just about 5 points, and when you adjust it with polling error, it becomes clear that this is also actually in this prediction a lean or tilt state. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to Joe Biden by just under 2% or a tilt margin. Finally, going to the state of Wisconsin here, another state where Joe Biden's not performing very well in the polls. You see that Trump is leading against Biden in most of the recent polls, and that generally Trump is leading by about 3 to 4 points on average. And overall, that would give again Trump a likely margin in the state of Wisconsin. Now, in this what the polling would suggest in this race would be that Donald Trump wins against Joe Biden in a landslide. In fact, some of the polls suggest that even states like New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Connecticut, Rhode Island could actually be competitive. Nevertheless, this would be, in any case, pretty much a landslide. You will see Donald Trump actually win the popular vote by several percentage points. It would look very, very good for Donald Trump. I don't think that this type of blowout landslide would occur. I don't think that personally that Trump will win states like Michigan or Wisconsin by 11 or 12 points, but he's probably going to win the election in this moment in time. Anyways, thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.